In this course, we'll walk through building a few sections of the design you see here step by step in both the Classic Editor and in Editor 2.0. The goal of this course is to help Classic Editor users make the transition to Editor 2.0 with confidence. So if you're familiar with the Classic experience and are ready to level up your skills and get comfortable in the new editor, you're in the right place. By the end of this course, you'll have a clear understanding of the key differences, as well as the powerful new tools that Editor 2.0 brings to the table. You might even be surprised by just how familiar Editor 2.0 feels once you get the hang of it, and even more surprised by the designs you'll be able to create. With tools and features that go beyond what's possible in the Classic Editor, Editor 2.0 opens up new creative possibilities you may not have explored before. First, a quick look at what to expect in this course. I'll start by building out a section in the Classic Editor, just like you may be used to. Then we'll switch over to Editor 2.0 and rebuild that same section there so you can see exactly how the process compares. Up on the screen, you should see a familiar blank Classic template. Let's start by reviewing the anatomy of the editor. The main area where you'll be creating your designs is called the canvas. At the top, we have the header, which is where your navigation and logo live. The main body of your design is made up of rows, and inside each row, you'll find columns. It's these columns that actually hold your site's content. Then at the bottom, we have the footer. Now let's look at Editor 2.0's canvas. Starting from the top, you'll notice a header. In Editor 2.0, you can choose to configure either a basic header or an advanced one. Later in the course, we'll explore the differences between them and help you decide when to use each. In Editor 2.0, instead of rows, you'll be working with sections. While the terminology is different, they function in much the same way. Just like with rows, inside sections you'll find columns. These columns will hold all the widgets for your site, just like in the Classic Editor. And then at the bottom of the page, you'll find the footer. Now that we're acquainted with both canvases, let's start building. I'll start with the Classic version. By clicking into the row, a context menu appears with design properties that you can modify for the row. Let's set a background image for the row and make a few other adjustments to get everything looking just right. Now let's see how to replicate these steps in Editor 2.0. When we click the section, a floating bar appears on the canvas. The floating bar lets me perform some quick actions, and it also gives me access to something called the Design panel, where we can make more detailed styling changes. This is one of the key differences you'll notice between the Classic Editor and Editor 2.0. Instead of a floating context menu popping up next to each element, all the styling and layout options are now centralized in the Design panel. You'll notice the same, if not even more, properties available here, all organized in one place. This creates a more focused and consistent editing experience, giving you easier access to all your design controls in one place. Now that we've added a background image, let's take a look at the content we'll be placing in the Hero section. This is a fairly simple section where we just need to add a heading and a small image side by side. Both elements appear to be left aligned, with empty space on the right side of the section to give the layout a clean, open feel. To create that open space on the right, you may want to add an empty column to your row. Now that we have our layout ready, I'll click into the column on the left and add an H1 widget. Then let's add an image widget to the same column. Let's revisit the context menu in Classic. It has two tabs, one for updating and configuring the widget's content, and another for applying styles to the widget. In both Classic and Editor 2.0, you'll use a context menu to edit a widget's content. However, only the Classic Editor lets you apply styles directly from that menu. Editor 2.0, as you saw earlier, moves those style options to the Design panel on the right. Now that we've added our two elements, we need to get them to sit side by side. So what do we know about columns in Classic? In Classic, columns are designed for vertical arrangement. That means within a column, widgets stack on top of each other from top to bottom. So if you're trying to place elements side by side, horizontally, you won't be able to do that inside a single column in Classic. Instead, we need to add an inner row inside our existing column. Inner rows in Classic are a powerful way to nest layouts and build more detailed designs. Think of them as mini rows you can drop inside a column. Just like regular rows, inner rows are divided into columns, so you can place elements side by side. So let's go ahead and add an H1 text widget in the leftmost column. Then, let's add an image widget in the column to the right. And let's make some final adjustments to the column. Let's now look at how to do the same in Editor 2.0. When you click the plus sign inside a column, the widget panel opens up, allowing you to browse and add widgets right into that space. Let's add our H1 widget first. One of those quick actions I can perform from the floating bar is adding widgets to the existing column I'm working from. And as we mentioned earlier, the context menu hasn't gone away, but now its role is more focused. As a reminder, in Editor 2.0, you'll use the context menu specifically to update a widget's content, not to style it. All the styling now happens in the design panel. Whether you're adjusting fonts, size, spacing, or layout, the design panel will be your go-to spot for making design changes. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, wait a minute, this is a column, so doesn't that mean I can only stack elements vertically, like in Classic? And that's a totally fair assumption. In Editor 2.0, columns still stack elements in a single direction, but now you get to choose what that direction is. By default, widgets inside a column stack top to bottom, just like in Classic. But here's the cool part. You can actually change the stacking direction by adjusting the layout settings for the column. Just switch the stacking direction to horizontal, and boom, your widgets will line up side by side instead. This eliminates the need for additional layout elements like nesting an inner row inside the column just to achieve a horizontal layout. You'll also notice that in Editor 2.0, you have more control over the size of your columns. This means you can define with greater precision how big or small each column should be. We've now built out the first section in both Classic and Editor 2.0 and explored some key properties of columns. In the next video, we'll continue building on that skill by exploring more ways to work with columns, and we'll see how they compare to the columns in Classic.